Well, good day to everybody around the world. Welcome again to our Human Ecology Project. Today we are joined by one of our fantastic advisory board members, the amazing and inspirational man of truth, Dr. Sailesh Rao. Dr. Rao is the founder and executive director of Climate Healers, which is a non-profit dedicated to healing the Earth's climate. He has many strings to his bow, but Sailesh is a systems specialist with a PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford. But in 2006, he switched careers and became deeply immersed in solving, which we all need to listen to, this man, solving the environmental crisis which is affecting humanity. And the other thing is, Dr. Rao is the author of 4 books with another fantastic book coming 2025, so watch this space. Sailesh, a big warm welcome. Always a joy to be with you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Climate Healers primarily focuses on the main driver of climate change, and that's more powerful than all the other drivers combined, animal agriculture. And conveniently, it's by far the easiest, quickest, and least expensive climate driver to address. So, Mr. Tara, can you just take it from here?
Well, I can get it started anyway. Good morning, Sailesh. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I think that, many people are, or not many people, but there are quite a few people, incredibly, that aren't familiar with your work. And so I want to just kind of ask you a couple of questions so that you can elucidate about your approach to things, because I think that there's so many different opinions about how to reverse climate change, etc. And none of them go quite to the core of the way that you do. And that's the way that we've seen your work ever since we've been exposed to it. Is that this is someone that's gone down to the very beginning, not started up at the top, just tinker with things, but go right to the cause. So I'd like you to speak a little bit about the function of trees in your whole vision of climate change.
Yeah. When I look at problems, I'm looking at it as a system. And how do you solve this problem from a systems perspective? And so we generally tend to root cause. So we do root cause analysis of what is really causing the problem. And if you think about how climate change is being framed, or even the ecological crisis is being framed, it's being framed as something that started, when we did the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
So we only look at data from Industrial Revolution onward. But I say, well, what happened before the Industrial Revolution? And if you start looking at it from the Agricultural Revolution onward, you get a bigger picture. And then you can root cause the problems. And so the role of trees is that, and if you look at the satellite map of the world today, satellite picture of the world today, you will see a lot of brown in the middle of the Earth. And we now know from fossil data that that used to be green as well, 10,000 years ago. And there used to be twice as many trees 10,000 years ago than there are today. So today there are 3 trillion trees on the planet, and there used to be 5 to 6 trillion trees on the planet, right? Now, trees don't live by themselves. They live on soil. And they have root systems. So if you look at the amount of carbon, and trees actually store carbon that came from the atmosphere. So they're constantly breathing carbon dioxide in and releasing oxygen out, right? We know that's the function of trees. So the carbon dioxide that they breathe in through photosynthesis, they take the carbon from that and store it in their trunks. Okay? So over time, as the tree grows, the carbon is being stored in the trunks in the form of hydrocarbons. So it turns out that approximately half the weight of a tree is carbon that used to be in the atmosphere. And that is the dry weight of the tree. You have to take out the water before you weigh the tree. Okay, so it's the dry weight of the tree. So half the weight of the tree is carbon that used to be in the atmosphere. And then the root system typically has just as much weight as the above ground. Okay. And the soil then contains carbon. And that carbon is about 3 times as much as in the tree itself, typically. Okay. So if you take a tree and the soil that it lives on and take all the 3 trillion trees and you count how much carbon is there, it actually has twice as much carbon as in the entire atmosphere today, and 4 times as much carbon as in all the fossil fuels we have burned to date. And that's in just 3 trillion trees. So you do the math and you say, what if we had 6 trillion trees on the planet? Can we not reverse climate change? So that was one of the first questions I asked. I mean, I didn't go into this kind of analysis, but I was just doing back of the envelope calculations and I was saying, wait a minute, if you bring back the trees on the land that we're currently using for animal agriculture, can we not reverse climate change? And that was the question I asked Vice President Al Gore during the training he was giving me in 2006. And he didn't want to answer it. So I knew at that point that there was something they were trying to hide, just like they're trying to hide the protein in plants. They're trying to hide the calcium in plants, They're trying to promote protein, that you have to consume meat to get protein or animal products to get protein. And you have to consume milk to get calcium. So the same kind of deception is going on in the climate arena as well. So it sort of made sense at that point that, because I think the use of animals is the foundation of the civilization that we are in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And
I'm just
sorry.
wondering. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Marlene. Right.
I just wanted to say, shocking enough to me the other day, I happened to do a Google search just to see, because the misinformation online now is becoming outrageous. And there's been an 4,000% increase on search engines on Google on the carnivore diet. 4,000% increase, because the food industry are putting billions and billions of pounds and dollars to spread this misinformation. So I just wanted to put that out there in case you weren't aware.
Just wanted to touch on something that I'm sure that you've factored in. I'm wondering if this, say you had an incredible rush of tree planting. You planted I don't know how many billions of trees you would have to plant, but
trillions, right? We have to plant 3 trillion trees. Yeah.
How long would you have to wait for those trees to gain the kind of maturity so that they were actually taking in?
When you plant a tree, when you plant these trees, suppose you plant tomorrow, we all got together and everyone planted hundreds of trees a day, right?
Right.
So that I'm also saying we have to plant the native trees that used to be in that region, because we're trying to restore the native ecosystems in that region, right?
Yeah.
If we did that and we made sure that the trees lived, they will start sucking down the carbon right away.
Right.
Okay. Now, how much do they suck down? Well, it is small in the beginning. And then as they grow, they suck more and more and more. And so I say that within the first year, you will see an impact right away.
So it would have to do really with the surface area of all of the leaves on all of the trees, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's just, it's a fascinating thing that nobody, I don't want to beat your drum too much, but that no one actually considered this before.
Well, the thing is, we presented about this in 2015 at the American Geophysical Union fall meeting. This is the largest gathering of climate scientists in the world. Okay, that happens every year. So in 2015, December, we presented it in San Francisco. And the paper that we presented basically said, if you take all the grazing lands today and replace them with the original forest that used to be there in 1800, okay? So we were just doing this in the model. So we're just going on a computer model
Right.
and taking every grid that's a grazing land grid. And if it used to be a forest in 1800, we just replaced it with that forest grid. And then we added up the numbers to see how much carbon gets stored, extra carbon gets stored. And we could only do that on 41% of the land because the other 59% were deforested before 1800, so we don't know what it was.
Right.
Okay, so we didn't touch that. But on 41% of the land, when we replaced the grid with forest grid, we could actually store more carbon than we have added to the atmosphere since 1750.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, so we presented this in a paper. And the scientists they all came to us and they said, yeah, you're right, but it'll never happen.
Right. Right.
So it's not that they didn't know.
Yeah.
Because anybody can figure this out. This is
Right.
not complicated to figure out, right?
Right.
Because you know how much carbon is being stored in trees. You know how much of the trees have been cut. It's just putting two and two together, right? It's not that hard.
Right.
So it's not that they didn't know. They know, but they're assuming that it'll never happen.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was very upset by that at that point. And I was telling them, how can we make a decision like that on behalf of people without even telling them?
Right. Yeah.
Shouldn't we at least tell them? If you just did this, we can solve climate change. But if you're not even telling them, and then I understood why they were not even telling them. Because that Wednesday, there was a banquet dinner at the AGU, and the main course was a slab of steak.
Right. Yeah.
So it's clear that they couldn't imagine giving
Yes.
it up.
Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that driving this narrative, or all of these narratives around climate change and narratives around veganism, is being driven by the fact that the people who are making the decisions aren't willing to make the decisions in their personal lives. Right? So obviously, they're not going to be recommending things that they themselves are not doing. And
Right.
Marlene and I were just talking this morning about how, if you don't have solutions that people can do in their daily lives, day to day, it's a total failure.
Yes.
And so changing your dietary pattern and not eating any meat or any animal foods, again, that's something that you face day to day. You do it day to day. And then you're modeling a future that works, right? If you're not going to do that, if you're going to be incremental continuously and say, well, you have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you never go anywhere.
No.
Right.
And we all know, right, from decades and decades of teaching, moderation does not work,
Right.
And the biggest form of mass destruction is we say to everybody, to their health, now to the climate, now to the planet, is 3 times a day what's on your plate. That's it. It's so simple, it's ridiculous. But now we have this whole new body of so-called health influencers online damaging. I mean, people believe what they believe, but they're seriously telling people that vegetables are trying to kill us with so many oxalates and anti-nutrients. I mean, you couldn't make it up, right? But believe it or not, people email and ask me, what do you think, Marlene? Is this true? Come on, people. The tsunami of misleading health claims on social media from people that have never studied anything except jumping on to become the newest influencer is just complete nonsense. So that actually makes Bill and I work harder, right? It makes us work harder to keep pushing out the truth. And that's why we need to get your work out there as well, Sailesh, to as many people around the globe as we can. We have the answer. We know what it is. Look at your plate 3 times a day. Done deal.
Right.
I know that you've been working with the planetary boundaries image there. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that this is one of those one of those areas again of inquiry that not a lot of people are really familiar with. The whole
Yeah,
concept of there being boundaries that when you go beyond those boundaries, you're in trouble.
right. Yeah. So the planetary boundaries framework is from the Stockholm Resilience Center. And they're analyzing the life support systems on the planet.
Right.
Okay. So there are several life support systems, like we know of the ozone hole that people were really concerned about in the 80s, right? And the Montreal Protocol helped reverse the ozone hole. And it's now closing, okay? So the ozone is a layer that life has created around the Earth so as to prevent ultraviolet rays from coming down and killing us.
Mm.
And if you make a hole in the ozone layer, you're going to get ultraviolet rays coming down and killing you, creating skin cancer all over the place. Okay. So life has created systems for the benefit of life to promote the continuation of life on the planet. So that's the ozone hole is one. Then there is the oxygen cycle. Then there is the nitrogen cycle. There's the phosphorus cycle, the carbon cycle. Now, these are all cycles that are created in order to to support life. Okay. Now, what humans have been doing is that we have been messing with these cycles. So we have been interfering with these cycles in our civilization. And as a result, just as we accidentally created an ozone hole, we've also created similar type of holes, okay, or excesses in the other cycles. And the Stockholm Resilience Center has come up with this planetary boundaries framework where they identified 9 different boundaries that we need to stay within in order to allow life to continue as we know it forever. So that's what they call the green zone. So you stay within the green zone and life will continue forever. And what they're estimating is that on 6 of those life support systems, we are now in the red or yellow zone. Okay. On 5 of them, we are in the red zone. On 1 of them, they think we are in the yellow zone. So, which means it has gone beyond the range, and it's not yet to a point where it's going to kill all of us, but it's getting there, right? So yellow means it's in the middle. But 5 of them are in the red zone, which means if you leave them there, it's going to, each one of them individually can kill us.
Right.
Kill life as we know it on the planet.
Mm.
So I say, imagine that you're on Mars and you're trying to create all these cycles on the planet, right? I mean, you will make sure that you're in the green zone first.
Yeah.
Okay? And you would treat life as precious on Mars.
Yeah.
Right? So if you created all these cycles and then you created the conditions for life to thrive, and you actually raise some plants and you raise some insects, you would be very upset if somebody comes and chops down all the plants and he steps on the insects.
Right. Right.
Okay? So we would consider life to be precious. And I'd say that if we did the same thing on Earth today, we can actually bring all the red violations of the planetary boundaries and bring them towards the green zone.
Right.
That's all we have to do. Yeah.
Only if you recognize that that's something that's important.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that framework allows us to look beyond climate change.
Right.
Okay? Because right now the media is telling us to focus just on climate change.
Yes. Yeah.
There are several problems that are even worse than climate change.
Yeah.
That we are not even considering, right, at the moment in the media.
Right.
So I think it's being framed as an economic growth story.
Yes, always.
Always, right? And so climate change, they're framing it as an economic growth story by presenting it as a fossil fuel issue.
Right.
And therefore, we just have to buy electric cars and solar panels and solve the problem.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you think that because these are ecological feedback loops, aren't they?
Mhm.
So is this analogous in any way to Lovelock's work, like the Gaia theory?
Yeah, Gaia theory is that Earth is actually in charge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Earth is actually creating conditions for life to thrive, right? And as part of that, she has created us also.
yes,
Okay. And I say that, when you look at it from a systems perspective and you assume that nature is the perfect system design. So that's one of my first assumptions I make, right?
yes,
When you assume that, you realize that nature has actually been using us. Life has been using us. Gaia has been using us
right,
to heat up the surface so that the earth can never go back to another ice age again.
right,
And now she's slapping us awake
yeah,
to understand, based on the science that we have understood now, that we are in the red zone on 6 of those 9, and that there is a way out.
yeah,
And that way out is to embrace veganism worldwide.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
when you embrace veganism worldwide, and I say veganism, I'm not only talking about what's on our plate, but it's also about our attitude towards
yes,
life.
yes,
So we start with what is sacred to us. If you
exactly,
look at our civilization today, what is sacred to us is actually property.
yes,
So we consider the Wailing Wall to be sacred, or actually George Monbiot had said that. We
yeah,
consider the Wailing Wall to be sacred, or the rock in Mecca to be sacred, or some place in Ayodhya, India, to be sacred.
right,
So we consider places to be sacred, rocks to be sacred, but not life.
yes, hmm,
So
yeah,
when we consider life to be sacred, when we say that Amazon is sacred, when we consider every life is sacred, which is what veganism is asking us to do.
yes,
Stop exploiting life
Yeah.
unnecessarily. And what does that mean? It means that you're trying to treat life as sacred.
Yeah.
And so that's the transformation that needs to happen. When we start treating life as sacred, then it's not just what's on our plate, but it's also what we wear. It's how much impact we have on the planet. So we are trying to minimize our footprint
exactly,
constantly.
yeah,
I mean, Gary Francione, our beloved Professor Gary, as you know, Sailesh, you've spent time with him. He tells everybody that the world needs to have a revolution of the heart, right?
Right.
And that is, and veganism is the answer. I remember back, just touching a bit on water, because for me, I don't know why people aren't even just out in the streets about this. Back as far as 2009, I think it was, there was a WikiLeaks exposure about the Nestle executives were doing their own research, right, about how the world was running out of fresh water, and within the next 30 years, I mean, that's 2009. This is 2016, 24. I've lost some years, but it's only like 15 years away, and people are still, as you say, they're just not waking up. So we need to waken everybody up as much as we can. That's the bottom line, right?
Yeah. I mean, I live in Phoenix, Arizona, so I understand the water crisis.
Yeah.
yeah, on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Right. But I still see people in Phoenix going to golf courses.
That's right, yeah, yeah,
And they have artificial lakes
Yeah.
yeah,
with,
yeah,
with boats on them. And,
yes.
and I
Sounds
say,
like good fun.
yeah, just completely oblivious to what they're doing with the water.
Yeah. So it's really, I mean, what we're talking about, is not just, and this is something you touched on there, and I think it's important for us all to communicate better. And that is that the kind of veganism that we're talking about is not just about the food that we eat. It's actually about a change in consciousness.
Right.
And that if the consciousness doesn't change, nothing else will change, because you can get people to stop eating meat. That could be done. You know, you could get people to start eating impossible burgers and, you know, whatever. I mean, that can actually be done. I know that from a commercial point of view, with the right advertising, that could be accelerated greatly, particularly if there was more money on the other end. But the
Right.
changing of the consciousness part, that's something that really has to be addressed in a totally different way.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is, it is actually awakening the feminine
Yes.
within all of us. Within all of us, we all have the feminine within us. We all have the masculine within us.
Yeah.
So it's the domination of the masculine in the current system, and
Yeah.
we need to do the nurturing of the feminine, right? Within all of us, within our children, within, and so it is a partnership with life, partnership with earth, as opposed to domination of the earth,
Exactly.
domination of life. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's a different system altogether. See, that's the thing I wanted to point out, is that it's a systems engineering problem from
Yes.
that perspective, right? It's a different system altogether. How do you create that system? And how do you then transition from this system to that system?
Right.
So those are the two steps that need to be addressed as a systems, from a systems perspective.
Yeah.
Because we have a system that governs us, so that we are, so it's sort of, people are automatically, brought into the system, and they're just going along. Right?
Yes, that's right.
And so, but we are going along, and we are all falling over a cliff, and there are more and more migrants. So you can see, even rich people's homes are being washed away.
Yes.
So it's not just the poor people who are going to be affected by this. Okay, people in Nantucket are losing their homes.
Yeah.
Right.
Or they're losing the value in their homes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, as far as we're concerned, right, I mean, our Human Ecology Project, as you know, Sailesh, is, we try and hold the food industry accountable, and we provide really excellent, real, true science-backed responses to what we produce every day, from our workbooks, from our videos, to get as much information as we can into schools. We have another 2 schools lined up. And that's where Bill and I are placing our focus, because we're brought into the world, as you said, and we're taught by our parents who were taught by their parents. So we have to change the paradigm and make this completely accessible and exciting, because as we're all chatting here, there's nothing more joyful than living a life that means you're harming no others, and you're living with great health and energy and vibrancy. It's contagious. You want to share it. I want to let everybody feel what I feel every day, right? I mean, so we get to the youth. That's where we're focusing our work, and hopefully we waken these kids up, because their future is what is in jeopardy here.
Yeah, absolutely. I say the number one thing we need to do is education, education, education.
Yeah,
right.
And it begins actually with pointing out to children that in the new system, they can remain as they were as children. Because Anton Chekhov had said, in nature, a repulsive caterpillar becomes a beautiful butterfly.
Right.
Whereas in human beings, a beautiful butterfly is turned into a repulsive caterpillar.
Right.
Very true.
with a voracious appetite.
With a voracious appetite, right? But I say that collectively in nature, a repulsive caterpillar, which is humanity, is being turned into a beautiful butterfly.
Right.
That's this transformation that we are working on.
Yeah.
And to go along with this transformation, we just let children be children.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
And allow adults to become children again.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a system. It's a system in which you allow adults to become children again. And it's a different game we have to play. It's a different set of stories we have to tell.
Right.
And it's a story of restoration.
Yes.
Right.
So we're restoring the planet like it used to be 10,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? That's the story of restoration we are saying. And it is part of Gaia. It's part of Mother Earth's plan to make sure that she never has to go back to another ice age again.
Right.
So she is doing active regulation. So
Right.
she's getting homeostasis for herself
Yes.
through us. And I say that we have now a tremendous purpose on this planet as a species,
Yeah.
which we did not have just 50 years ago or 100 years ago.
I know. I mean, probably like you, we have a whiteboard. We have so many projects we want to do. We're like two people, my boy Bill and me, right? And we're all saying, we've got to do this. But what we thought we would do moving forward with the Human Ecology Project was to start doing fact checking and pre-bunking all the nonsense out there with short, tiny clips, because people don't have great attention spans these days, and actually maybe putting that out, because we see hugely professional, intelligent people who have cancer and all sorts. Sailesh, they've never been exposed to what you, Bill, and I, and many friends and colleagues teach. They've never been exposed to this, and it might sound like it comes of a bit of a shock to think, well, are they under a stone? But they just don't live in our world, and when they're presented with the information, they actually change. We have a great success rate with our courses and programs. When people come, they always come with illness. However, but at the end of the day, when they're exposed to the big picture, like what you've been discussing, they actually are concerned for their kids or grandkids. So we just need to keep breaking down doors, breaking down walls, and get this information out as far and wide as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, the greatest weapon you have for breaking down walls is your food.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you serve them a 4-course whole food plant-based meal, including dessert that tastes so good, anyone will melt. You're melting their hearts from the inside.
Thank you. Well, I've got to get out there. I've got to get my cooking apron on more and get out there.
Yes.
Yes, it's true. It's the way to the heart sometimes is through the belly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think that this, there's just, again, it's a change of narrative, because I think that one of the things what I hear a lot even in the regular news world, the Orthodox press, is this whole thing about, it's kind of a joke about vegan food being unpalatable.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, it would be okay. Yes, the idea is okay, but the food is so terrible, and it's people just need to eat the food. They need to eat food and see that it can be different, and then learn how they can do it in a way that is practical for themselves.
I think that's where we need to come together as a community, as a partnership, and do this together. So I say, if you ask me, what are the steps, system steps you need to take to make this transformation? First is education, telling the story. The story that there is nothing wrong. A fever that the earth has is a signal from the earth. It's not that, fever is something that we have to just run away from and pour, aspirin on the earth and stuff like that to get rid of the fever. No, it's a signal from earth saying you're done with this one phase and you have to move on to the next.
Right.
Okay. So there is nothing wrong. And I say, you have to tell that story. The education has to happen. And then we have to make sure that everybody has access to Marlene's food.
Oh, just out of that little kitchen in there.
No, lots of kitchens around the world can be cooking from the same book, right?
Yes.
So I really think that a new way of, basically new way of organizing the food system is fundamental. Okay. It's the food system that defines the civilization.
Yes.
So a new food system in which there is no hunger. No one has to go hungry anymore. Because why do we have hunger still today? We have like 800 million people not getting enough food on the planet. Why do we have that? Because we are still in a colonial system.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's persuading people to do things they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the reason why they're using hunger as a weapon to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I say that they used that in India. It was very blatant in India
Yes.
during the colonial era. We had like 35 famines, and caused, I think, 25 famines, and it caused about 60 million people to die. And it was used as a way to get people to migrate and to do work that they wouldn't do otherwise.
Right.
Same thing is still happening today. That's the point I'm making, because there are 800 million people who are hungry.
Yes.
Okay, it's just not visible to us anymore.
Yeah.
But
And on the other side, it's like in economies that are emerging, or that's a term that's being used, but it really means they're becoming more and more money oriented.
right,
In these economies, what's happening is a new kind of colonialism, and a lot of that is food colonialism,
right,
nutrition colonialism, right? Where you have, when we've been to places where all of a sudden you see nothing but Kentucky Fried Chicken and
right.
McDonald's directly appealing to the young people in the
Mhm.
country, even when the country has a really fine diet.
Yes.
The actual national diet is a good diet and fairly healthy diet.
Right.
So the colonial impulse hasn't gone away, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we see examples of that, in India. I think between 1990 and 2019, the rate of heart disease doubled.
Yeah.
And this was the time when India became more open to allowing McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken to come in, and so all the colonial food came in. So I'm saying you can see what is going on right
Yeah.
there in front of our eyes.
Mm.
And so it's just decolonizing ourselves, going back to, because it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
We should be invading America and the West with healthy food, which is
Absolutely.
really what you're trying to do, right, Marlene?
It's
So-
interesting because in the 1960s, when I first got involved in the whole food issue, eating a natural diet was considered a revolutionary act.
yeah,
And one of the things, it was really put forward to communicate it in that way. Many of us were communicating that. If a lot of the social unrest that was being experienced, if you want to be truly revolutionary, one of the things you can do is you can change your diet and your attitude about the environment. And it's interesting, but that was co-opted by greed, right? It was co-opted by monetizing
Mhm.
that movement rather than it being the same. And so there was an article recently in Los Angeles Times about a store that I started in Los Angeles, and now it's gone through several iterations, and it's become a very trendy place for people to shop. I was thinking that the history of that, from that first little shop to this super shop where movie stars go for their smoothies, is a very interesting profile of the whole monetization of a good
Right.
idea.
Right.
It's just amazing, because now, and they were talking about now, they've even gone away from the more vegetarian approach, and they were having a meat smoothie was one of the things that they're featuring now. I thought, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
It's
can
a
something
system.
go so wrong? But
Yeah.
it's very easy for people, for us all, I suppose, in one way or another, to get enchanted by certain narratives about what we can be in the world, or what we can do in the world, or what we can have in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
The game of money is a colonial game.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
current game of money is a colonial game. So we need to switch that game, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're stuck in the same game of money, we are still stuck in the colonial system.
Yes.
I say if you want to free ourselves, and if you want to basically do this transformation from a caterpillar to the butterfly, you have to change the game of money.
Yes.
And that begins with offering free food, free healthy food.
Right.
So healthy food should be free. Unhealthy food, you can pay for it now in the old model. Then you'll see the old game drying off.
Yeah.
So again, this is a systems angle, right? So you look at it from a systems angle, you'll see how do you turn off a system? Well, you have to sort of reduce the energy that goes into that system and increase the energy that goes into the new system.
Right.
And how do you do that? Well, the community has to come together and offer healthy food for free.
Yeah.
And I say, which community can do that? Well, every community where you go and pray together, every community where you go and live together. You know, it's the job of the community to offer healthy food for free.
Right.
Okay? And then they can monetize the unhealthiness, right? So they can say, if you don't want to eat the healthy food, if you want to eat your burgers, then you'll pay double or whatever. So you can make up your money then.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good game plan. I think it might have been in one of your news bulletins, Silas. I can't remember, but I remember Muhammad Ali saying, if your mind can conceive and your heart can believe, then we can achieve. Right? It's such a beautiful saying. It's so true though, isn't it? Because, you know, we're creatures of habit, and it's just about changing your habit. And community-wise, I think is such a perfect way. People united, as we say, united we stand, divided we fall. But it's a cliche, but it's very true. And when you have support, and that's what Bill and I do, we support as many as we can to, you know, start with a friend, start with a neighbour, start to grow things. We encourage people to, you know, create events together, do potlucks, and, you know, but food for freedom, which is Will Tuttle's new book. I was chatting to him yesterday. He talks about that as well. Healthy food should be free. Let the other ones that want to eat the toxic food that's killing the planet, let them go pay premier prices. And that would start to shift the consciousness of people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And, you know, we can come together and grow our food. You know, we can,
Yes.
you know, buy in bulk, whatever you need. It's not going to cost much, I'm saying, to create
No.
healthy food.
I know. I know.
It's part of that negative narrative, you know, about it costing more, you know, which is
Right.
it's just like, you know, actually it costs so little to eat the absolute healthiest food.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I could talk to you forever, as could Bill, but you know, we're out of time, and I must encourage everyone to get behind Dr. Sailesh Rao program.
Yes.
It's phenomenal. Subscribe to his newsletters. He does amazing work. He has a great team of people with him. And of course, we're honoured to have Dr. Roy as one of our advisory board members with many of our other great friends. So all hands on deck. Veganism, the only way that's going to save the planet, and we have a world worth saving. We need to give gratitude every day. I mean, every day, Bill and I are, good morning, my wee China. We call each other, good morning, my wee China, blessed to be breathing. That's how much gratitude we have for each other, for the world we have, for sharing what we have every day. So, a revolution of the heart, says Gary Francione. Food for free, says Sailesh Rao, and Bill and Marlene. We're all on it together. So I'm out there starting to grow vegetables, and I'm going to bring other people on board to
Are
do.
you supposed to be in the kitchen, woman?
Oh yeah, that's right. You can get your apron on, woman.
No, I mean, your work is so creative, Marlene. It's just incredible.
Oh, bless you. So is yours. Thank you so much. And we look forward to having you with us again at Oxford Literary Festival. It'll be a great joy. Dr. Roy's new book, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share the title, but it will be published and he will be presenting at Oxford Literary Festival with Bill and I, Gary Francione, and many other great friends. So thank you so much. And we will see you soon in person again, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Looking forward to it.
We'll put in the links to your site and to your information.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.